Caitlin Clark's quiet defiance became louder than any statement the WNBA could make. After a violent on-court hit that left fans furious and the league scrambling for cover, Clark refused to react with outrage. Instead, she let her poise and performance do the talking. As the commissioner's office hesitated, sponsors threatened to withdraw, and social media erupted, the balance of power shifted.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Overnight, what began as a failed PR move to contain controversy transformed into a moment of reckoning for the league's leadership. Clark's calm silence and grace under fire exposed not just one poor decision, but an entire system unprepared for accountability. Her victory marked more than a legal or policy triumph. It was a cultural shift. The league, once in control of narratives, found itself answering to fans, sponsors, and the very athletes it tried to silence. Clark's resilience dismantled the illusion of institutional power, proving that authenticity resonates louder than damage control. The commissioner's regret wasn't about the backlash alone. It was about realizing too late that the future of the league belongs to the players and the people, not the press releases. Clark didn't just win a battle. She redefined who holds a mic in women's sports. It was the body check heard around the world. Caitlin Clark took a blatant hit during a WNBA game. An aggressive, unnecessary move that had fans, commentators, and media alike doing double takes. And the league? Silent. At first, at least. What followed was not just outrage. It was a slow, smoldering rebellion. Not from Clark. She didn't lash out. She didn't hop on social media to air grievances or subtweet the league. Instead, she stayed locked in, eyes on the game, composure intact. That's what made everything that happened next hit harder. While Clark carried herself like a pro, the WNBA leadership flailed. And that's putting it mildly. Instead of taking control and publicly denouncing the incident, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and the higher-ups tried to play it down. Damage control kicked in behind the scenes. Quiet phone calls, vague statements, and a hope it would all just blow over. It didn't. That hit on Clark became a symbol, not just of the physical intensity on the court, but how badly the WNBA misread the room. Their decision to initially brush the incident under the rug wasn't just a PR blunder. It was a message that said, we'll protect the league before we protect our players. And fans weren't having it. Social media exploded. Sports commentators called it out. Fans dissected every angle of the clip. The silence from the WNBA spoke volumes, and those volumes were filled with disappointment. The longer the league waited to make a real statement, the worse it got. Then came the tipping point, when major media voices weighed in. Charles Barkley, never one to hold back, openly questioned the double standards and how physicality is policed in women's versus men's basketball. Stephen A. Smith chimed in, slamming the WNBA's non-response and pushing the issue into mainstream sports discourse. Suddenly, this wasn't just a WNBA controversy. It was a national conversation. Clark, still not saying much, let her game do the talking, and it was loud. Her performance didn't drop. Her demeanor stayed sharp and focused. No theatrics. No clapping back. Just precision. That quiet strength, it resonated. Fans saw it. Brands saw it. The media saw it. And more importantly, they rallied behind it. Meanwhile, the WNBA was on the verge of a full-blown credibility crisis. The court of public opinion was not in their favor, and the league office realized too late that their passive approach was actively costing them. Every day without a proper response was a missed opportunity to show leadership, and sponsors were watching closely. Nike, Gatorade, and other top brands with major investment in women's basketball were not about to stay quiet if players' safety was being compromised. According to reports, several corporate partners made it clear behind the scenes. Fix it or we walk. The league, now cornered, had to act. Suddenly, things moved. Rulebook revisions were announced. Conduct policies were reviewed. An acknowledgement of the incident was finally issued. But by then, the damage was done. The WNBA had lost control of the narrative, and Clark had never even touched the mic. This wasn't just about one player taking a hit. It was about how an entire institution handled or failed to handle accountability. It exposed how disconnected league leadership had become from the fan base, the media, and even their own stars. The moment the fans saw Clark get knocked down, then watched the league try to shrug it off, the floodgates opened. The irony? The WNBA thought silence would protect their image, but it was Clark's silence that actually changed the game. She became the face of resilience. Her refusal to retaliate or feed the drama didn't just gain her respect. It redefined power in women's basketball. Without uttering a word, she became a symbol of integrity in a sea of spin. What started as a PR stumble spiraled into a reckoning. And now, the WNBA is playing catch-up. It's not just about Caitlin Clark anymore. It's about what she represents. She exposed a leadership gap. She made clear that fans won't tolerate institutional silence when players are put at risk, and she forced the league to admit that the old way of doing things, behind closed doors, out of sight, out of mind, no longer works. The truth is, this moment has triggered a shift in who holds the power. It's not the boardrooms anymore. It's the people in the seats. The ones tweeting, commenting, showing up, and speaking out. It's the players who keep it professional, who show up game after game, and do their job even when the system doesn't have their back. Clark's rise is proof that being loud isn't always about volume. Sometimes it's about consistency, grace, poise. She didn't need to clap back, because everyone else did it for her. And when the WNBA finally did respond, it wasn't out of conviction. It was out of necessity. Let's be clear. The only reason this incident led to actual reforms is because sponsors, media, and fans made it impossible to ignore. The league didn't lead, it followed. And that should be a wake-up call. Moving forward, the pressure's on. Every policy change, every disciplinary action, every official statement will be judged through a sharper lens. The bar's been raised, and not by the league, but by the audience. You don't get to go silent anymore and hope the news cycle saves you. Clark's victory here wasn't won with a press release. It was earned through professionalism, patience, and performance. And that kind of win sticks. It exposes the institutions that rely on apathy. It forces evolution. If there's a lesson in all this, it's simple. The era of unchecked leadership in women's sports is ending. The fans have more influence than ever. The players, especially those with the poise and platform of Clark, are no longer just athletes. They're change agents. And the league? It can either evolve or get dragged publicly. Caitlin Clark didn't just walk away from that assault on the court with bruises. She walked away with leverage, the kind that comes when everyone sees the facade and chooses to rally around the person being mistreated. She didn't play the victim. She played her game. And that's what made her untouchable. So yeah, the commissioner probably regrets that silence now, because what started as a PR gamble turned into a full-scale reckoning, one that forced the league to rewrite its policies, rework its priorities, and rethink how it treats its stars. This wasn't about drama. It was about dignity. And Clark came out of it not just clean, but elevated. The story's not over, either. This moment is a line in the sand. And whether the WNBA can truly step up remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, fans are watching. Sponsors are watching. And Caitlin Clark? She's not going anywhere. If you followed this saga, you already know how deep it ran. If you're new here, welcome to the front lines of how change actually happens in sports. Slow, loud, inconvenient, and completely necessary. So tell us, did the league fumble the moment beyond repair? Or can this be the reset women's basketball desperately needs? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you think accountability in sports matters. And subscribe for more breakdowns of the wildest moments happening behind the scenes. Because in this league, the real games don't just happen on the court. Here's where it gets even more ridiculous. The WNBA leadership seemed genuinely shocked by the backlash. Like, they had no idea this kind of silence wouldn't fly in 2025. In an era where every sneeze is dissected in HD, the league somehow thought ignoring an on-court assault involving their biggest rising star was a viable strategy. Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She's a player, the ticket seller, the ratings magnet, the name that turns casual viewers into fans. And yet, when she got hit with what everyone could see was a dangerous, aggressive move, the league's response was nothing. No suspension, no public apology, no disciplinary follow-up. Just a faint shrug buried under a pile of PR templates. That miscalculation lit a fire under everyone. And while the league's higher-ups were scrambling behind closed doors, Clark was still clocking in every night, doing what she does best, dropping dimes and draining threes. Unbothered, undistracted. Meanwhile, the league's reputation was doing laps in the mud. You could feel the momentum shifting in real time. Commentators on national broadcasts started getting more blunt. Players from other teams began speaking out, carefully but clearly. The fans, they were already 10 steps ahead. Social media turned into a courtroom. Every second of that incident replayed, analyzed, slowed down, zoomed in. The consensus was undeniable. The league messed this up. And yet Clark? Still no public reaction. No press conference tantrum. No side eyes in interviews. That silence became louder than any rant could have ever been. Her restraint wasn't weakness. It was strategy. While the league fumbled every opportunity to show leadership, Clark let the world come to her defense. And it did. Even the sponsors started feeling the heat. Big-name brands don't like controversy they can't control, especially when it threatens their image of empowerment and progressiveness. Several made it known. If the WNBA couldn't guarantee basic player protection, those shiny endorsement deals might start evaporating. That's the thing about money. It speaks. And when brands started hinting they might back away, that's when the league finally got serious. Suddenly, meetings were being held. Policy reviews were announced. Rule books were dusted off. The exact kind of knee-jerk reform that only happens when money's on the line. But it didn't feel noble. It felt performative. Like, oh, now you care? Only after the fans revolt and the sponsors raise their eyebrows? Clark didn't ask for any of this. She just wanted to hoop. But the way this unfolded forced everyone to look in the mirror, and not everyone liked what they saw. There's also the gendered layer that can't be ignored. Let's be honest. If this had happened in the NBA, the player throwing that hit would have been fined, suspended, and put under a microscope for the rest of the season. Sports shows would have run 48-hour think pieces on respect, competition, and sportsmanship. But in the WNBA, the hit on Clark was treated like a part of the game. Except it wasn't. It was targeted. It was excessive. And everyone knew it. That's why this wasn't just about a foul. It was about fairness. About how women's sports are policed differently. About how rising stars are expected to tough it out instead of being protected. Clark became the unwilling poster child for a deeper problem. How the league handles confrontation, aggression, and responsibility. And the wild part? She turned all that into power. The longer the league delayed a real response, the more fans leaned into Clark's side, the more the media covered her grace under pressure, the more people started framing her not just as a great player, but as a leader, not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. By the time the WNBA finally issued a statement and hinted at some reforms, it already felt like Clark had won something bigger than any game. She'd survived the storm, stayed composed, and gained more support than ever. And now, the league is stuck playing catch-up. They're trying to pivot, release statements, review policies, promise accountability. But the public already saw how they really operate when the spotlight hits. That's a reputation stain that doesn't wash off overnight. Here's the real kicker. The power dynamic has shifted. Fans aren't just watching, they're steering. Players aren't just employees, they're the brand. And the league can't hide behind vague statements anymore. Not when everything they do is under a digital microscope. Clark's situation made it crystal clear. You can't build a league off a superstar, then leave her hanging the moment things get uncomfortable. That's not just bad PR. It's bad leadership. And honestly, it's embarrassing. The fact that the biggest star in the league had to endure an aggressive hit, say nothing, and still be the only adult in the room says a lot. It says the WNBA is at a crossroads. Evolve or get left behind. Protect your players or lose the fans. There's no middle ground anymore. What Clark proved, without ever giving a quote, is that silence can be louder than a microphone. That restraint can be more powerful than retaliation. and that when you focus on your craft, when you stay true to your professionalism, the world will rise up around you. Her win wasn't just about points on the board. It was about integrity, composure, leadership, and the league now has to follow her example if they want to stay relevant. Because the next time something like this happens, and there will be a next time, people will remember how the WNBA handled this one. And if they haven't learned from it, they'll lose more than just games. They'll lose credibility, trust, support. Clark didn't need to hold a press conference or go live on Instagram to get her point across. Her poise was the message. And now, that message has reshaped the conversation around women's basketball. It's no longer about whether the league can protect its stars. It's about why it didn't protect this one when it mattered most. And that's the kind of question that doesn't go away with a rulebook update. Clark may not have asked to be the face of a movement, but that's what she became. Not because she fought for the spotlight, but because she handled the chaos with clarity. Because while everyone else panicked, she played. And that kind of strength, you can't fake it. So if the WNBA wants to turn this mess into a turning point, they'll have to match the standard Clark just set. No more half measures. No more excuses. Fans are watching. The media is watching. And the players, they're taking notes. Because now, everyone knows the truth. Power in this league doesn't just sit in the commissioner's office. It's in the hands of the athletes, the fans, and the people who aren't afraid to demand better. And Caitlin Clark? She's not just winning games. She's changing the game. The fallout from this entire situation didn't just dent the WNBA's reputation. It cracked something deeper, a foundation. Because what's a league without trust? And more importantly, what's a league without its stars? The uncomfortable truth is, this wasn't just one mishandled incident. This was a stress test, a test of how the league protects its most valuable players. And it failed spectacularly. Clark's rise isn't just some PR storyline for the summer. She's a generational talent the WNBA has been waiting for, filling arenas, selling jerseys, drawing crossover viewers who weren't even watching women's basketball before. She's that rare, era-defining athlete who can shift culture and ratings, the kind that sponsors line up to be associated with. And the WNBA couldn't even protect her from being blindsided on the court. Now, sure, basketball's a physical game. No one's denying that. But this wasn't just physical. It was hostile. It was intentional. And the league's slow, dismissive handling of it told everyone exactly where their priorities were. Not on the safety of the player who's single-handedly boosting their visibility. Not on optics. Not on accountability. Just on avoiding a scandal. Too late. Because once the footage hit social media, this wasn't a niche moment for hardcore fans. It became a mainstream issue. It became bigger than the game. Everyone had a take, and most of them weren't kind to the league. You saw in the coverage. Headlines asking why the league stayed silent. Analysts pointing out the glaring double standards. Former players admitting they'd seen similar moments swept under the rug. Fans asking, if this is how you treat your star player, how do you treat the rest? And the silence from Clark? That's what cut the deepest. Because when someone knows they've been wronged and still chooses grace, that grace becomes a mirror. It forces everyone else to reckon with their behavior. She didn't have to defend herself. The world did it for her. And that says everything. Behind the scenes, the pressure was suffocating. Sponsors don't like being associated with chaos they didn't sign up for. And they definitely don't like being seen as complicit in a system that doesn't prioritize athlete welfare. You don't pay millions to have your logo next to a scandal. So when the sponsorship ecosystem started rumbling, quiet calls, not so subtle warnings, the league had no choice. That's when policy reviews magically appeared. That's when vague, conduct conversations started happening. That's when the WNBA finally stepped out of denial and into response mode. But the damage? Already done. And Clark? She didn't flinch, didn't blink, kept showing up, kept playing at an elite level. Every shot she made after that incident hit harder. Every assist, every fast break. It all carried the weight of a player rising above a league that tried to downplay what happened to her. In that silence, Clark didn't lose her voice. She weaponized it. While everyone else was scrambling for statements, she was rewriting what composure under pressure looks like. It wasn't passive. It was powerful, and it forced a reckoning. Let's not forget, Clark didn't go looking for controversy. She didn't ask to be a symbol. She was there to play basketball. But the league's inaction made her the center of a movement. And now, she's not just the face of women's basketball. She's a quiet force demanding better. The real irony? The league tried to avoid attention by saying nothing, and ended up creating one of the most talked about moments of the season. Silence turned into headlines. PR avoidance turned into public revolt. It's almost poetic, because now, every move the league makes is under scrutiny. Every foul called, every policy updated, every disciplinary action. People are watching with eyes wide open, asking, would this be happening if Caitlin Clark hadn't taken that hit and kept her mouth shut? Probably not. That's the power of how this unfolded. Not just what happened on the court, but what happened after. Clark's resilience pulled the entire ecosystem into check. It forced the WNBA to confront how outdated its crisis management playbook really was. And it wasn't just about one player. Other athletes started speaking out, some directly, some through subtle commentary. It was like a permission slip got signed the moment Clark didn't retaliate and still came out on top. She showed everyone that you don't have to play politics to make a statement. Sometimes, just being excellent in the face of disrespect is enough to start a movement. That's what makes this so much bigger than basketball. This was a line in the sand moment, one of those before and after events. The WNBA doesn't get to go back to the way things were. Not now. Not when everyone has receipts. Not when fans have turned into watchdogs. Not when players know that excellence doesn't mean immunity from being targeted, and silence doesn't mean safety. The league is on notice now. Every game is a test. Every decision is weighed against how they handled this one. And Clark? She's still out there leading, without ever having to raise her voice. That's leadership the league didn't see coming, and now they can't look away. What's wild is how preventable all of this was. One clear statement. One suspension. One show of accountability. That's all it would have taken to shift the narrative. Instead, they stalled, and stalled again until the pressure exploded from the outside in. So now, every attempt to get ahead of the story feels reactive. Every reform feels overdue. Every statement feels like it's trying to catch up to a player who never said a word and still won the battle. This is what power looks like now. Not just on the scoreboard, but in the narrative. And Clark owns that narrative, whether the WNBA likes it or not. She's not just dominating on the court. She's defining the future. Without tweets. Without rants. Just results. And the league? They're left cleaning up a mess they made with their own silence. The lesson here couldn't be clearer. You can't build an empire off a player's brilliance and then disappear when she's targeted. You can't call her the future of the sport and then act like her safety isn't your responsibility. Fans won't let it slide. Media won't let it slide. And now, she won't need to say anything because her play already told the whole story. The WNBA needed Clark. Clark didn't need the league to validate her. She already had the people. And if they don't get their act together, the people will walk. You're witnessing a shift, not just in how women's sports are covered, but in who holds the power. And if the league wants to keep up, it's going to have to start leading with integrity, not just reaction. Because the next Caitlin Clark moment, it's coming. And this time, everyone knows what silence really means. If you've been following every twist of the saga, drop a comment with your thoughts. Should the league have acted faster? Did Clark's silence speak louder than anything else? Like this video if you think players deserve real protection, not just headlines. And hit subscribe if you want more coverage on the drama, the downfalls, and the decisions that change the game forever. We're not done talking about this. Not even close.